Extraordinary story coming out of Pretoria, where the trial of, or rather, is it the pre-trial? I don't know the legal terminology for it, but anyway, Oscar Pistorius is now facing a premeditated murder charge. It says, I'm just following this on Twitter, by the way, Alicia. It says here, Oscar Pistorius looks completely crushed at the judgment that this will be a Schedule 6, not a Schedule 5. About 5 minutes ago, they were saying it might be a Schedule 5 and it would just be murder, and everyone was thinking that he could get bail. There's very little chance of him getting bail now with a Schedule 6, and the Oscar Pistorius family, it says here, praying in court and all sorts of pandemonium going on. What an extraordinary story.
Absolutely, and as that drama unfolds, Lindsay, we've got Nike pulling its adverts featuring the Paralympic athlete Oscar Pistorius and eyewear maker Oakley as well, suspending its contract with the sports star too. It appears that sponsors are slowly starting to distance themselves away from the situation, and Clive Simpkins, who's an independent marketing and communication strategist, joins us now for a look at the risks involved in sponsorships of personalities. Clive, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. Well, it seems finding a brand personality these days harder than it once was.
You know, it's been hard for a long time. I'm old enough to remember that when Nedbank first started using personality endorsement, they used British actor Jack Hadley, who sat in a bank vault with a huge barred gate on it, and the door slammed and he said, for people who are serious about money. And then he was caught in a drunk driving charge and they had to yank the ad. So this probably was 25 years ago. So these guys are following a tradition in a desperately unfortunate way.
Mm-hmm.
Clive, I was thinking about George Best. Sorry, George was in my head. Clive, the first person that I remember being really badly behaved as a sportsman was George Best. I mean, the incredible Northern Ireland and Manchester United footballer. And there was that famous picture of him with this great big sort of pyramid of champagne glasses and girls and everything. And it seems to me that sponsors have a responsibility. They have to say, yes, we're going to get as many contracts, and agents as well, as many contracts as we can. We're going to earn you a lot of money. We're going to promote you. You're going to be on every billboard everywhere in the world. But you've also got to have somebody to guide this person, this young person that's been thrust into the limelight, male, female, no matter what sport it is, and say, this is how you behave, as I said earlier on, because they can't handle it. Very often sportsmen are stupid, I have to say that.
Wow, okay.
Lindsay's blunt, if anything.
I'll speak on behalf of George then. I kid. Lindsay, you know, the bottom line to it is talented people are often psychologically dysfunctional people. In the Greek tradition, giftedness comes with madness. So it's not to be unexpected. If you take any very high-performing individual, you often get aberrant behavior. Dr. Johan Redelinghuis, who is a renowned South African industrial psychologist, says that a full 25% of the top business leadership in South Africa are psychopaths. And that is a phenomenon that you find around the world. So what you see on stage is not necessarily what you see off stage.
Mm-hmm. While we're saying all of this and we're looking at the risk and how risky it is for businesses to actually sponsor public figures, I mean, surely you've got an audience that can separate to an extent brand from personality. I mean, surely you've got a discerning audience that you're catering to here. So just how risky is it in reality for business?
You are absolutely correct. The audience is discerning. It's not Nike and it's not Oakley and it's not British Telecom who goes and takes the strain here. It's the individual concerned. So in a short space of time, I mean, we've forgotten what Tiger Woods did. We kind of will forget what Lance Armstrong did in connection with his brand sponsorships. This is the way it is.
And not necessarily forget about Nike, the brand.
Quite correct. The brand will remain relatively unscathed. We understand that these are bad boys on the block, and I'm not in any way diminishing what's gone on here, but talented people like that are people who don't necessarily have high emotional intelligence. They're not people who are socially sophisticated. They're often not well-educated people. They are machines that do a particular thing well. So the brand owners understand that and have to work with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Clive, I said stupid, you put it in a more eloquent way, so thanks for backing me up on that one. So what you've got to do, you've got to find somebody who is clean-cut, relatively intelligent, and is not going to go out and smash his McLaren F1 car into a tree or do something stupid in a nightclub or take drugs or whatever. Someone like Rory McIlroy, for example, is the world #1 golfer at the moment. He must be a dream. He's clean-cut, he's got a nice girlfriend, he smiles a lot, he has a little bit of fun and a beer occasionally. And when you get that person, goodness me, you've got to grab hold of them and nurture them.
You know, Lindsay, the bottom line to it is that you're right, but it's idealistic. Fact is, they're not going to find people like that. Heaven forbid that we find it with Rory McIlroy, but the chances are that, again, there's an offstage behavioural pattern. You know, you go and look at Max Clifford, that hugely influential spin doctor overseas who was found to be fiddling around with kids. So there he was defending people who were abusing children. He himself is culpable of the same thing, according to the allegations. So unless we go and dig up a couple of saints from a tomb somewhere and use them as the brand icons, we're not going to find that. It's just a risk that the brand owners have to take. It's part and parcel of it.
Do you see businesses shifting away from needing to employ personalities to actually get their branding out there?
Oh no, they won't do that. There's enormous equity in having a high-profile individual, however bad they are. And in some cases, the bad element, if you take a David Beckham of the world, for example, some of the controversy that surrounded him, that can often play well for the brand because they're wearing the brand clothing, they're using the logo, and provided it's within a reasonable space called tolerable behavior, that's a brand-building element. Every time you mention the brand, you see it, you're building the brand. In this kind of case, they step away. No, those are not the brand values, either intrinsic or extrinsic. We understand that.
Can you quantify the amount of money that is put in versus the amount that you get out, Clive? Because I noticed over the Christmas period, I watched with fascination in the United Kingdom the fact that the big supermarket brands dropped the celebrity motif this year, and they went back to, you know, snowmen and Christmas trees and children playing in front of the fire and that sort of things to get back to family values. They didn't want the big celebrities endorsing Tesco's and Sainsbury's and that sort of thing. Is there a chance that after this latest fallen idol that the big brands will do exactly the same and go back to, you know, kicking a ball and hitting a ball with a tennis racket or something rather than someone doing it for them?
I doubt it. I seriously don't see vanilla becoming an acceptable flavour in this kind of instance. You know, if we're looking to build a brand, we tend to want to go to the extremities. So we want to find somebody with a compelling emotional story, the way Oscar did. We want to find somebody who is going to push the limits of normality, because that's really what we're looking at the whole time, is positioning the brand, getting it to rise above the clutter. Vast sums of money involved. Guarantee once the dust has settled here, we'll find somebody else.
Yeah. Where you talk about you know, a brand needing to recover as a business from such involvement, do they really need to recover?
Yeah, when I use the word recover, you're going to need a little bit of time and space in between it. I mean, you're not going to go and see a Nike ad in a week's time with a new personality. That would be an extremely injudicious move. So the dust will settle and somebody else will appear, but that's really the recovery. So the good thing in a way, and it's what another television network said when they pulled down billboards in Santon Drive, for example, that had Oscar up on them. The idea was we don't want to go and push this in the faces of a grieving family. So there needs to be a period of sensitivity and a period to allow the angst and the pain of all of this to settle. And this is going to take a long time because this is uber messy.
Is there an analysis of what how the brand suffers? I mean, in other words, will you have a look at it over the next couple of months and say, because of Oscar Pistorius, sales in South Africa of this particular brand went down? Just like, again, looking at the United Kingdom, the sales of cheap burgers have gone down because of the horse meat scandal. Is it, again, quantifiable?
I don't believe that the brand sales of Nike or Oakley are going to go down at all. Reputation and brands exist as a psychological element in people's minds, and I don't in any way see Nike, apparently or otherwise, having endorsed Oscar's behavior. And if the Nike people were intelligent, they would certainly come out with some sort of message to say, we really don't support the idea of abusing women. We feel that there should be better gender equity, subtle nuancing to indicate that was in dissonance with their values, for example. I don't think they'll see a loss in sales. It's a perception thing. It's a bit like the stock market. It's a case of what's the sentiment. As I sit here, would I blame Oakley or Nike or British Telecom for Oscar's apparently appalling behavior? Emphatically not.
Absolutely. Well, while it may not cost them in sales, what about the cost of pulling advertising? Of course, this all has gone, the entire campaign has been launched already, and it's come at a cost.
You're very correct there. You've got advertising agencies around the world frantically working 24/7 to come up with a new concept, to look at damage control, to look at an appropriate way of easing Nike back into public visibility along with British Telecom and so on. When it comes to what Lindsay was saying, Tesco, for example, and you've got horse meat in burgers, and Nestle discovered this morning that they've got a horse meat in ravioli, and I'm a vegetarian, so thank goodness for that.
And you and Lindsay alike, so the two of you lucky.
Point there is that's way more radical. It's a bit like discovering that I've got some bovine ingredient in my toothpaste. It would be absolutely abhorrent. So those are things which impact on us directly. It's not going to minimize your or my reputation or Lindsay's if we are seen to be wearing Oakley sunglasses and sporting a BT phone or wearing a Nike shirt with a swoosh. Not really in the same league, and perhaps they need to be very grateful for that.